Hi, welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. I'm so sorry that I haven't gotten a video up. I don't know if you can tell since the background is a bit different, but very similar at the same time, but I have moved. So between work and packing and moving and unpacking, I just wasn't able to get the video filmed, even though I was prepared to film it and get it up for you. So I'm very sorry that you had to wait so long for this video. Please also excuse any of the lighting issues. I don't think it's quite as well lit as I had my last videos, so I'm going to still tinker with that with my new space and see if I can get it lit a little bit better so you can see me really well. Though hopefully it won't distract too much from the actual lesson and what I'm going to be talking about. So we have a lot to cover for our last little bit of Dragons of Winter Night. We are finally finishing our story here, our book, and then we'll be going on to the third one. And maybe after that, after we take a short break, we can come back and do the Test of the Twins, because there is going to be lots more story to go. But for now, we're going to go ahead and stick with the main three. So we're 2/3 done with the story that comes from the Dragonlance Chronicles. So yeah, a lot to cover in these last chapters. A lot happens. A lot of juicy things that lead us up to starting the next story. Because we have so much to cover, I know the last time we finished book 1, I kind of did where we rolled over into looking at what's going to be in the next one, and kind of did a little bit of an ending and a little bit of a pre-beginning. Because we have so much to cover for these last chapters, because there's so much that happens, I think I'm going to push that off to where we will start reading the next one, and then we will have a little bit of time to see what we think is going to happen in the story, even though we've kind of started a little bit. So we'll put that in with the beginning of the next book. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right into our story here and doing our recap. So, Strum is officially knighted after Laurana tells him that he has been pardoned, and she helps give the testimony that lets him be pardoned. Things are looking very grim, because after she gets there, the pass is pretty much blocked off. They can't get anything through, which means that their supplies have also been cut off. And they don't know if they're gonna have to just starve to death waiting for the enemy on the battlefield and not even be able to fight them, because they'll just be dead before they have to attack. Tasloff is, as always, adventurous and curious, and goes into the High Claris Tower, despite not technically supposing to be in there, and discovers another dragon orb inside. The enemy officer brings back the 2 commanders, showing that they were dead, except for Derek, who died right after he was brought back. And basically, Laurana declares war for them by shooting him in the arm. And then the roads do happen to open up to Palanthas, so they send a messenger in the hopes of getting reinforcements, since most of their force is dead, unfortunately. And then Tass shows Laurana that they have the dragon orb in the Claris Tower, and shows it, and he reads the orb in order to make sure Laurana could use it if it becomes necessary, which it does when the dragons come. Finally, the dragons come, as well as the commander known as the Dark Lady. And then we have Strum sacrificing himself to buy Laurana and the others time to set up for the dragon orb, being able to use it, and the plan that they have to use the tower. So Strum, unfortunately, is killed by the Dark Lady, and then Laurana struggles but uses the orb and calls 2 of the dragons into the tower to be slaughtered with the Dragonlances. And because the Draconians are part dragon, her Kitiara, or the Dark Ladies, armies are scattered, and they kind of win the day, even though it doesn't really feel like a win for everybody. And then afterward, we see that Kitiara is indeed the Dark Lady, like we probably all of you figured she was, and that she is the one that has killed Strum, and that she is with Tanis. And then they hold the funeral for the dead knights, and we see at the end a little bit of Elhana and what is happening in Sylvanesti, where she finally decides to fly to her people. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, so like I said, a lot happens in this ending portion, a lot of important things. And the first thing I want to talk about is Strum. Strum is obviously in the last little bit of this book as well. It's been a really big major part of the book. But down in these last chapters, he is especially the focus of these chapters. The whole set of last chapters here that we read, we don't even see the other group. We're just focused on Strum, Laurana, Tess, and Flint, and they're trying to save the High Clerist's Tower in Palanthas. And Strum is the commander of these knights, and so we really see Strum, and we really see how his character has grown and changed. Because, like I said, we don't see Strum tons. He's not like Tanis. He's not like a huge in your face all the time. We're constantly seeing him, constantly knowing about what he's doing and how he's feeling and stuff like that. He's kind of, even though he's a very important character and we all love, at least I love Strum, maybe you don't love Strum, but most people I think come to love Strum, and just as much as they love any of the other people in the group, I think, but we don't really see him as a huge main character, somebody that we know tons about. We don't even know much about his past other than that he wears his dad's armor. But we don't know anything about his past. We don't know, why he's so dedicated to the code other than that, he has that past connection with his dad. We don't really know much about Strum. We just know a little bit of his personality. We know about his principles. And we know that he's always wanted to be a knight. Like, that's his biggest dream, and he's finally gotten that dream. But then these last chapters, we really see who he is, and it's kind of like a change or a growth. We see that he has grown and where he's at, especially in these last moments, which really, when you're gonna die, those are the moments that truly count toward a person and who a person is. So we really see his strengths, and we really see why Tanis and everybody else loves him so much and thinks so much of him. He gains his men's loyalty. So many of them stay behind even though they know that they could be killed, denied, whatever, by the knights because they didn't follow the superior knight's orders. They decide to stay by Strum, and they know that he's right, and they know that he knows what he's talking about. So very, very few. I think it mentions that a couple of them did go with Derek's group, but for the most part, all of his men are loyal to him, know that he is smart, know that he knows what's right, and they stick by him. Then he speaks out against Derek, which no other knight, sure, the knights under his command are excited that he's doing that, but nobody else had the guts to speak against Derek and to say, Derek is wrong, Derek is a jerk, Derek isn't in the best interest for the knighthood, Derek is just going to lead all his people to be killed and slaughtered. He's the only one that stands up and says, no, you are wrong. He sticks by his guns, he sticks by what he knows is right, and he doesn't let anything like power struggles or anything like the corruption that the knighthood is going through stop him from doing what is correct and what is right. And then we see how he changes to the despair. We've always known that Strum isn't the happiest person. I wouldn't say that he's like a suicidal person because obviously, he gets in a lot of battles. He's not like reckless and where he's like, oh, I don't care if I die. But we also know that the knights don't think poorly of suicide and going out against your enemy and literally choosing to die. I think that's a little bit what Derek kind of was doing. thinking, oh, it's better to die in battle than to be starving to death. But at the same time, that wasn't the correct way to go about saving the tower. And so we see that Strum has turned to despair. He has given up hope. Not that he's giving up fighting, but he doesn't believe he's going to win, and that he thinks that this is his last moments, and he's going to make them count, because he knows that he's not going to get any more. Or at least he suspects. He doesn't actually know until the end when he decides to go out. He's given up on the measure completely. We see this change, this snap, especially when Derek tells them that he wants them all to head out to battle and to die in battle, thinking that they're going to win because Derek's insane. He says, throw the measure out the window. Why am I following you? Oh yeah, I'm not going to, because you're stupid. You're doing nothing good by going out there and dying. You're just sacrificing yourself. You're going to maybe kill a couple enemies, and we're still going to have the rest of the enemy to overrun the tower. So he gives up on the measure. He throws it out. He curses it a little bit in front of everybody. He says, what good has it done anybody? It's corrupted the knighthood because they're so fixated on the measure and the rules. So even though he's followed this measure and this code his whole life, when he gets to the moment here, he just throws it all away. And he doesn't even, not that he likes that he's doing that, but he doesn't let it define him anymore. He has broken free of the restraints that the knights have kept themselves in for centuries, and what has now led to their corruption. He is saying, no, I won't do this anymore. The measure is wrong. We have to change. We have to update ourselves. We have to go based on what is right, not what the measure says. And then we see that he is against the knighthood. The knighthood that he has always wanted to be a part of. The knighthood that he has idolized and treasured and cared about, and everything he's ever worked toward. He is standing in the face of it and saying, this isn't right, and you're not right. I don't want to be a part of this anymore if this is the way it's going to be. So he's one person, one knight against all the other knights. And he sees what is right, and he is saying, I don't care if I've worked my whole life and this is just throwing out my purpose, the whole thing that I've ever dreamed about, out the window. I don't want this dream if it's going to be this way. And stands up against everybody. Sure, he's got the knights that are on his side, but he's not doing it for political gain. He's standing literally by himself, with them rooting on the side for him. But he could be killed just for standing up against Derek and standing up against the knighthood. He could be killed, especially now that he is officially a knight. But he does it anyway. So we really see him grow, and we really see his strengths, and you really see him and see why Tanis loves him, Lorana loves him, Flint loves him, Tass loves him, how everybody truly loves this knight and thinks how noble he is and how wonderful he is. You really truly see his character and how much he has grown and how much he changes as well, with seeing his dream in reality and understanding that it is not what he thought it should be. Now, of course, I have to spend a moment on Strum's death. I don't know about you guys, but during the actual moment, as well as the funeral, I was choked up. I was almost in tears. Because, one, in the end, I love Strum. He's such a wonderful person. And especially in these chapters, you really see what a great person he is. Two, the writing on it is spectacular. It really makes you feel there, that you're actually seeing the person you love and care about die before your eyes, and you feel what he feels, and you hear his pain. And even though, yes, the knights do look almost admirably on sacrificing yourself in battle and having a warrior's death, Strum wasn't doing it for those reasons. He was doing it to protect his friends, his comrades, his family, the people he considers his family, and to also protect the knighthood. I don't know if you really think about it that way. I didn't really think about it much that way until this reading and making the notes for this video and trying to think of what I wanted to say. Strum is so against the knighthood, against their corruption, against Derek, against everything that it stands for at this point. He's given the measure away. He's only living by the code at this point, which is only half of the knighthood. It's only how you should act as a person to be a good person to others, and the honor that it is to be an honorable person. And he's protecting the knighthood. He is making sure this tower doesn't fall to evil. Now, he's not protecting them necessarily because he loves them. Obviously, he doesn't. But he puts aside his thoughts on the corruption and how terrible they are, and how he might even, it doesn't say it specifically in the text, but he might feel so strongly that he's like, this just needs to all be gone. Since he's throwing out the measure, I imagine that possibly inside of him he thinks the knighthood has failed. It needs to be dispersed because apparently it's not working anymore. But he knows that the knights need to be protected. That tower had to be protected, and evil could not come one step closer. Otherwise, the good and other people in the world might fall. So he is there to protect the knighthood. He stands in the way and says, you will not get through here. You will not get to Palanthus. You will not get to the knights. You will not move one step closer. And he protects the knighthood as well as his comrades and his family by going up to those dragons and saying, you will fight me. I will die, but you will fight me. And then you will lose because my friends and my family have a plan to defeat you, and I'm going to make it so it works. And it's very, very powerful. I don't know if you can tell right now, I'm getting a little choked up just talking about it. And it really, really shows the depth of his character more than anything else. That he is bravely standing there, facing his fear, doing his best. Not even just, because he knows he's going to die, just letting it happen. He's literally putting up a fight. He's literally fighting for his life. Even though he knows he is basically giving it up, he is no longer just calmly going to let it slip away from him. He would like, if he could, though he knows that it won't happen, but if he was able to get away from it, he would. He would love that. He's not just dying because he thinks that his despair has consumed him. He is dying to make it so they have a chance to live with that little bit of hope. He had lost all hope, and now he sees just a little bit of it in Laurana's plan, and he steps forward, not with despair, not with just waiting to die, not just wanting an honorable death, but to give them a chance to possibly survive. It's a strong impact on me. If anybody else was sad to see Strum killed, loved Strum, felt the impact of his passing, felt the impact of the way he died, comment down below. I'd really love to hear about how you felt in this moment with this death scene. Now let's move on to a little bit of a happier topic, or at least, not quite so despairing, which is kind of hard to do considering despair is the capital first name of this whole section. But let's talk a little bit about Strum and Tanis and their relationship. I know we've talked a lot about how Tanis is a connection that holds all of the people together, all of the group together, which is very true, even when they're separated, but also a little, not totally true once they're separated. I mean, they've connected their own bonds, and you can see that, Laurana and Strum and Flint and Tass are all connected to each other. They all love each other very much, and so that's what's keeping them together, not just Tanis. But you see the depth of Tanis's connections to all the people in his group, even now that they're split up. And this is especially true now in these last couple of chapters and with Strum's death. Because Tanis is such a front and center person and Strum is not. Strum is one of the group people that is not focused on all the time. You know, we're much more focused on Razlan. We're much more focused on Tass. We're much more focused on Laurana, even though Laurana came in later. You know, Strum is there and we see him and we know him, but he's not like front and center all the time. He's not somebody who we know a lot about and we focus on a lot. So sometimes it's hard to see exactly the dynamics between the Tanis and Strum, but in this moment, or these last moments with Strum and the way Laurana is after Strum's death, we really see the love that Strum has for Tanis. And we see the love through Laurana and Laurana's thoughts and feelings about how Tanis will react when he knows that Strum is dead. You see the love that Tanis has for Strum and how deep it goes. Strum is thinking about Laurana and how much Tanis loves Laurana and wants her to be safe, and is almost putting that ahead of needing people to guard the tower and wants to send her away. We see in his last moments when he knows he's going to be dying because he's going to go face those dragons, he mentions that he wants to tell Tanis something, but then he says no. Tanis will know what was in my heart, because he knows that Tanis knows him that well and loves him that much. And he loves Tanis enough that he wants Tanis to remember him. That he doesn't want to say anything that will not be true to what their relationship was. Tanis was his commander, his leader, somebody who he loved and admired, but he was also his deepest friend. And you really, really see these bonds, these strong, strong bonds that Tanis and Strum have. Tanis somehow seems to touch everybody and has a strong bond with all of them. You even see it with Laurana and her bond to him all the time, being connected to her so much in this past book. But now you really see that Strum wasn't with Tanis for so long and wasn't hanging out with him and wasn't following him, admiring him, just because he thought he was a good commander, or just because, you know, it was something to do, or because he was connected to some of the other people in the group. It's actually despite that, because he really doesn't, though he have times that Razlan's okay, they're okay, he really doesn't like Razlan, he doesn't trust Razlan. Like, you know, if he had a choice, he would not be around Razlan. But his connection and his love to Tanis keeps him there. And all the good times that him and Tanis have had really, really show in these last moments when they're talking about him, and the way Laurana knows how devastated Tanis is going to be when Strum is gone. It's kind of sad that Strum seems to be a forgotten character until, not necessarily like a fully forgotten character, I don't want to say like he doesn't exist, but he kind of is, like I've been saying, he's a background character until this book and at the end of the book. And suddenly he's got like 10 chapters where he just strikes you in the heart, and you see how much love everybody has for him, how much love Tanis has for him, how much love he has for everybody in the group, including Tanis, and especially Tanis, and how even in the end he hasn't seen him in for so long. They're all split up, he knows he's going to die, and he wants to have that last connection with Tanis, and he wishes he could say goodbye to his friend, someone that he loved and cared about really deeply. I think that's all I have to say on that. As you could tell, this is like it's a really depressing topic to talk about, these set of chapters. Comment down below what you feel about Tanis and Strum and their connection, and if you see it more or less. Maybe you're feeling differently. Maybe you don't think Strum is as a forgotten character as I do until the end. How do you feel about Strum? Or maybe you don't ever connect to him at all. Let me know down below. Alright, next we're going to talk about Tass, which is always a fun topic to discuss. But we're talking a little bit more of a serious topic for Tass. We're talking about his character growth and his character change. And you're probably like, we never thought Tass would change. We never thought that Tass would have the growth that he does. But Tass as always, he proves why he's my favorite character, and that is because we start off with him as a Kender, which is kind of has a lot of similarities to children. I think I've mentioned that before. They're very childlike, very playful, not a lot of cares in the world. They do like to steal, which I'm not saying that that's necessarily a child quality, but that is something that is part of the Kender character. But he has grown into so much more than just an average Kender. He still has the same essence to him, as we see when he goes to explore the tower. Because he's like, oh, well, I'm not supposed to go in there, but why not? Like, what's the point of having a tower if you don't go in there? And he just breaks in and he's exploring because he wants to explore, which is totally task-like. Totally who he is. Totally his essence. Kender at its finest. But we see, especially even in the chapters before this, but especially now, we see the seriousness that has come over him and the maturity that has become part of him. He makes hard adult choices. Obviously, he's not really a kid, but I'm trying to make the distinction between who he is now and how we look at the changes he's made. He is making the big decisions. Like before, in the last book, he says to Fizbin, I'm going to do the little things because I'm a little person, and that's what I can do, is I can focus on the little things while the big people focus on the big things. But now he is focusing on the big things. He is focusing on stuff that normally Tanis or Strum or somebody else would do. He breaks the dragon orb. He makes that decision for people. Part of it is because I think the big people can't get out of their freaking way and make the decisions themselves. But Tas steps up despite the fear, despite how horrible the world is going. He steps up and makes those decisions. He understands the consequences of his actions. He's not just doing it being like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter what happens in the end, I'm not going to get in trouble. He knows that these actions have consequences and they must be taken seriously. We can't just decide to jump in head first like Tas normally wants to do. And they're usually pulling him back by his top knot and being like, whoa, hold on, we can't just go running in there. Because that's totally what Tas would do. Now he understands the complications. He understands the finesse and the thought process and the time it takes to understand what's happening and to make choices that go toward doing the right thing. So he's not jumping in head first. In fact, he's like, nope, let's not do the dragon orb. Let's step away. Like, this is not good. I already had to break one. And he's stopping, pausing, and thinking. It really shows his maturity that he's grown into in this last book and where he's at now. He's even more serious at times. He's not quite so much joking. He's not quite so much like out of the loop where like suddenly you're just like, Tas, what the heck is that going on? Like, do you not see that everyone's like serious and upset and it's not the time to be making jokes and to go running around and being playful. He's even though, yeah, he has that comment where like after he's sleeping against the wall where he's like, ooh, what's for breakfast? But he's sitting against that wall. He's not running around. He's not making jokes. He's not, like, oh, look at that. What's that? Where everyone's like, will you please shut up? And like, calm down. He is calm. He is just sitting there calmly. He's supporting his friends and he's not what he would be before. He's much more serious. So a lot of ways, it is like he was a kid and now he's maturing into an adult. Quote. That's just my my way of explaining how I view it, where he's just been much more mature. He's much more serious. He has a lot more thoughts and a lot more where he's thinking about it in the way that Tanis would and Lorana would and Strum would. And it makes me so proud of him. I don't know about you guys, but I am always so proud of Tas. He is so brave. So brave. And even when Laurana is trying to use that orb and he's scared for her soul, because that's actually what's at stake here. And he knows, even though he wants to jump in and do something and make it work and make it better, he waits because he knows what Fizban has told him is that if he does anything, he could lose Laurana forever. So he has these brave moments. Brave when he breaks the dragon orb. Brave when he's helping Laurana. Brave when he even has the right to say, no, maybe we shouldn't use this dragon orb. Like, this is not okay. But then he's brave again when Laurana says that we need you to do this. And he decides to do it. Let me know what you think about Tas and his growth and his change through this book, and especially these last chapters. These ones and the ones right before it, where we really see how deep Tas is becoming as a character. Alright, so now the next topic we're going to discuss is that we have reached the very lowest low of this story. Obviously, I'm talking about it meaning the first book, second, third book. I know I mentioned this a little bit in our transition between book 1 and book 2, that we are starting off high, we are diving down lowest point, the most despairing point, and then the way the story usually works is that we then rise up above it. So right now, as we figured, by the way, when we talked about the cover and what we thought was going to be in it, we have indeed reached the lowest of the low. We're at ultimate despair. There is no hope in sight, pretty much, in these last chapters. We do get a little tiny bit of hope at the very, very end, like, especially since they didn't die yet. They're still stuck there. And the enemy is only pulled back for a couple of days. And there's the funeral, and we see a little bit of the hope between, like, you know, Laurana and Alhana. Oh, I never realized, like, those names rhyme. Anyway, that they're fired up and they're ready to go, and they're not going to stand for this injustice anymore. They're both pulling through to being like, I've got to make something happen here. They're sick of all the despair. But despite that, it's very, very minimal hope in that way. We don't really see that much. All we're seeing is death, destruction. Our friend has died. There is no hope in sight. Everybody, almost the whole entire knighthood that was sent there is dead. It's all just crap. It's all despair and sadness. I mean, yes, technically Tanis and that side of things isn't at quite of a low, but we might have lost Tanis to Kitiara at this point. We haven't seen him since he was, you know, in her bed and letting her whisk him away again. We don't know if he's even gonna decide to go back to his friends at this point, especially when we see that Kitiara then says that she's left him there in charge of things. So we don't really know what's happening with him. So it might even be despair in the fact that we might have lost Tanis to the dark side. So yeah, we have despair in abundance. We've got death of Strum, of Derek, of all the knights. We've got death galore. We end the book with the funeral of all of the knights that have died in the tower, especially Strum. And Laurana's speech is so strong, and also just it shows how much Strum's death didn't need to be the case if the knighthood had just done what they should have been doing, if they weren't all corrupted by power. I'd like to read that, actually. Let's go ahead and read Laurana's little speech about Strum. All right. Here we go. For me, it's page 388 on my copy. The very end of the page. "You expect a noble speech," she said, her voice cold as the air of the scepter. A noble speech honoring the heroic deeds of these men who have died. Well, you won't get it. Not from me. The knights glanced at each other, faces dark. These men, who should have been united in a brotherhood forged when Kryn was young, died in bitter discord, brought about by pride, ambition, and greed. Your eyes turn to Derek Carongard, but he was not totally to blame. You are. All of you who took sides in this reckless bid for power. A few knights lowered their heads, some paled with shame and anger. Lorana choked with her tears. Then she felt Flint's hand slip into hers, squeezing it comfortingly. Swallowing, she drew a deep breath. Only one man was above this. Only one man here among you lived with the code every day of his life. And for the most of those days, he was not a knight. Or rather, he was a knight where it meant the most, in spirit, in heart, not in some official list. Reaching behind her, Lorana took the blood-stained dragonlance from the altar and raised it high over her head. And as she lifted the lance, her spirit was lifted. The wings of darkness that had hovered around her were banished. When she raised her voice, the knights stared at her in wonder. Her beauty blessed them like the night, like... I can't read. Sorry about that, guys. Her beauty blessed them like the beauty of a dawning spring day. Tomorrow I will leave this place, Lorana said softly, her luminous eyes on the dragonlance. I will go to Palanthas. I will take with me the story of this day. I will take this lance and the head of a dragon. I will dump that sinister bloody head upon the steps of their magnificent palace. I will stand upon the dragon's head and make them listen to me. And Palanthas will listen. They will see their danger. And then I will go to Sandcrest and to Urgoth and to every other place in this world where people refuse to lay down their petty hatreds and join together. For until we conquered the evil within ourselves, as this man did, we can never conquer the great evil that threatens to engulf us. She says a little bit more, but I'm going to stop there. I feel like that was the most powerful portions of it, and it shows perfectly what's happening and why this despair is here. It does lift us up a little bit at the end as she's lifted up, but it really just shows how deep we've fallen and how Lorana sees how deep this world has fallen and why we're so stuck in this despair, why things are so wrong at this point. It's really the lowest of the low that we could get, and it's only can get up from here, hopefully, unless we're just going to plunge into more death and destruction and everyone dies. Which, considering we have a lot of a book to go, I don't think that's the case. But, like I said, the story, we started off high, we started off in a good place. Even when they're fighting against, trying to get away from people or trying to kill them, it's not like they have any options. They're not just skinning by the skin of their, what is that expression? Not just slipping by the skin. You know what I mean. Anyway, it'll come to me, like, after I finish this video and after I'm, like, doing something else, I'll be like, that's what I meant to say. Anyway. Well, they're not just getting by. They're actually, having plans, getting out of things, putting themselves into situations to help others. But here, it's literally like, we're gonna die. It'll be a miracle if we don't die. And it is a miracle that any of them survived at this point. It truly is a miracle. A miracle that Tass discovered the Dragon Orb. A miracle that Lorana could indeed control it. A miracle that she got it to do what she wanted it to do. It's a miracle that Strum decided to die so he could then help his friends. And I don't mean miracle in a good way in that way. I just mean that it's a miracle that he was able to do it. That he was brave enough to face death, stare it in the face, and do it. So, hopefully the next book will be going up from here. Okay, the last thing I wanted to discuss before we get to the nitty-gritty is why our main characters are chosen for this journey, or why they are not caught up in all of the prejudice and the hatreds and the evil that is plaguing this world. I was thinking about it as I was finishing up this book, is like, especially with some of the comments that are made in this last couple of chapters, especially with Strum before his death. Sorry, I keep pausing. I'm like trying to think of what I'm trying to say. But especially with him going up to knowing he's going to die, and the struggle he's facing when he's clomping back and forth on the top of the battlements. He mentions that he's seen the world through half-elf eyes, through barbarian eyes, through dwarf eyes, through kinder eyes. He's been with his friends, and that has made him realize the true worth of this world. And I think that is why this group of people is the lead in saving the world. Why I think Paladine and the gods picked them, because I do, even at this point, think that the books allude to that they were chosen to be here. I don't know. Do you guys get that vibe from that so far? I feel like there are many signs that show that they're the ones that have to do it, especially those signs that Visbin gives, where he talks about the hard way and the easy way and what way we're going to choose. Makes it seem like they were chosen, that this is something that was pre-designed. And I feel like they were chosen, and that they are the ones that are able to do it because they are a unique group. Sure, they're probably not the only group of people that mix different races of beings, but they're the biggest group, and they're the ones that, no matter what, the base group that started off in the inn, they have no prejudice against any other race of Kryn, because, they're already best friends with Flint the dwarf, Tass a kinder. We've got knights. We've got Raslin for a magician. We've got so many different types of people all in this one group. It's not just humans. It's not just, elves. It's not just something else. They're a big mix, a hodgepodge of people, and they already have seen and through different eyes, knowing that it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter. There's no hatreds. There's no problems. They see the world as it is, and they love the other races, and they love the other beings, and they are best friends with people from those races. And then even the people who are added in, the people like Thorana and Gilthanis and the Plains people, Riverwind and Goldmoon, they become part of this group, and even they have their prejudice and their thoughts and the things that they've lived in with when they've been isolated as their own people and thinking that what they think is right, and they join this group and they realize, hey, we're wrong. Everything we thought about dwarves, everything we thought about elves, everything that we assumed because we isolated ourselves from everybody else is wrong. They realize their mistakes. They realize their eyes are open to the way the world really is, and realizing that their prejudices are stupid. And so they are not caught up in the prejudices around them, in the evil surrounding them, because they have looked through and actually seen the real world. They've interacted with the real world instead of being like the elves and confining themselves to their little corner of the world, not wanting to interact. They're not the plains people who lived out on the plains and decided not to interact even with other humans. They're not the dwarves who hide in their mountain and don't help anybody else. They're people who have seen everything, and they experience the world, and they see how things really are. And so they are not drawn into the corruption of the knights. They're not drawn into the corruption of the elves. They're not drawn into the corruption of any of them. And they are there to stand and fight for the goodness, because they know that all races are extremely valuable. It's really amazing to think about all these characters and their love for each other and their love for the world, and they're putting themselves out there. They're willing to sacrifice and die in some cases. Some of them think they might die at any time when they're battling for the good of all these people who just hate each other. What do you guys think? Please comment down below if you have anything to say. I would really love to hear your comments. All right, let's go ahead and get to the nitty-gritty. The first thing I'd like to say in the nitty-gritty is that Alhana did really love Strum with her soul, as it seems in the end that that's how that works. It's pretty interesting that she would give him that star jewel knowing that their souls would be connected, and that even though she didn't know that she loved him that much, she did in the end, especially seeing all his trials, everything that he's gone through. She loved him. So much so that I wonder if she'll ever be able to have anybody ever again. And the Rana even makes comments about how Strum could never know what gift he had been given by Alhana. And in the end, she couldn't bury Strum. She keeps him with her in that star jewel that has faded away. She doesn't finish burying it. She hangs it back around her neck. And I wonder if even after that few moments, it was just love at first encounter. And she began to truly realize how much she loved that human, which for her is another way that now she's changing, is because now she's not only interacted with other beings, but now she's fallen in love with one. And even though he's dead, I think that her hanging that around her neck shows that she can't let him go. He is forever the one for her. And I find that really interesting. And we're going to see where that takes us into the next book with Alhana, and see if we see where she goes and how she's going to help the elves get over themselves, hopefully. Okay, then the next thing is Razlan's prediction has come true. Do you remember back at the beginning of this book when he says that some of us will not meet again in this world? Well, Strum has died. And since the beginning of the book, I was thinking back to who has interacted with who, what has happened. Strum hasn't seen Cameron, hasn't seen Razlan, hasn't seen Goldmoon or Riverend, except for in the dream, since they parted in that inn and Razlan made that prediction. And he hasn't seen Tanis since they got separated when he went into that inn and got crashed with everybody else and ended up joining the other group. So Razlan's prediction came true. As ominous as it was, and as far away as it was, you probably weren't thinking about that, but it came true. Strum was not able to see some of his friends again before he died. And what does that say about Razlan? What does that mean that he knew that? What does it mean going forward? Especially when Razlan himself didn't even know why he said it. What powers are moving this party forward? Again, this is another reason why I think they were chosen. Something is happening that leads them forward. Okay, next thing is that Kit Tiara is the one that kills Strum. And not only that, but she's not going to tell Tanis. I don't really know what I want to say on that yet. It was more of a, as always with this nitty-gritty, it's more of a something I want to put out into the world. Think about it. I'll think about it. Maybe we can come back, have a discussion. If you have anything that you want to say in that topic, please leave your comments down below. I would love to hear it. But I do think it's significant. I do think it's significant that someone who was his friend at one point, who journeyed with him, that fought next to him, is the one that kills him. Leave your comments down below. I'd really love to hear whatever you feel or think about that situation. And then last but not least, the question once again, have we lost Tanis to the dark side? Have we lost Tanis to Kitiara? We're going to find out in the next book. See where it takes us, see what's going to happen, but at this point it's looking pretty grim. And not only that, but Laurana knows that he is with Kitiara and Kitiara is the enemy. And she made a comment about how she was leaving him in charge of things. So what is Laurana gonna think? During the funeral, she was mentioning that she was heartbroken that she was gonna have to tell Tanis because she knows Kitiara is not gonna tell him. So it's like she hasn't given up hope on him, and yet she still at the same time doesn't know. Because she can tell Kitiara was not lying. But what does it mean that she and him are together and that she's the enemy? We're going to have to see how that plays out, what thoughts, what feelings that happen going forward. It's going to be interesting. All right. Now, we are starting the next book. Dragons of Spring Dawn. Dawning. Sorry, I missed half the word. I was looking at it and I was like, wait, there's a G at the end of that. Anyway, Dragons of Spring Dawning. So, usually like last time, the last book, when we transitioned into this book, we did a little bit of a switch over, like where, we talked about this book and what we thought we were going to get from it, considering the title, considering the cover, compare, contrast, looked at the front of it, things like that. Sorry about my phone going off again. And then we kind of discussed what our expectations were. Because there was so much to cover for the end of this book, I decided we're going to push that off till next episode. So we will read some of this, and then the next episode we will go ahead and discuss the cover, discuss the beginning a little bit, and then we'll go and jump into the book. So because we won't have started too much of it, I feel like we can still do that transition and still talk about what we expect to get from the book. And then we can see if our expectations are following through with the first couple of chapters in that episode, that video. So yeah, our next class will be on the beginning of this book. Read chapters 5 up through chapter 5, which for me is pages 1 through 65. So go ahead and read the beginning poem here, and don't forget to read the Everman as well, which happens before chapter 1. So yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll be on the last little third of this particular story, and we'll see how it goes. Let me know if you're still loving the book, if you're not loving the books, if you're, whatever you're feeling, thinking, questions, comments, concerns, anything that you want to discuss with me, leave it in the comments below. I would be happy to have a discussion with you and to hear your thoughts and feelings so far. Hope you are still loving the book, at least. And if not, I love to hear why you don't like them, since I like them so much. But yeah, I will see you for the next class. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!